I was smoothing the cuff of my cream silk blouse when my phone buzzed, 3 short vibrations against the glass desk, sharp enough to slice through the quiet of my new home office. Morning sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors, catching on the gold frame of the family photo I kept turned face down. Some things were easier not to look at. I took a slow breath, the kind you take when you're trying not to wrinkle your outfit or your composure. Life was good now, steady, safe, beautifully mine. But good doesn't mean uncomplicated. The phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. Calling, Dad. My throat tightened, the way it always did when the past knocked on the door of the life I'd built without it. I could almost hear Madison, my 2-year-old, laughing from downstairs as my sister-in-law watched her. The sound drifted up faintly, warm and soft, tugging at the memories I worked so hard to bury. My father never called this early. And he never called twice unless something was wrong. I pressed the accept button, fingers trembling just slightly. Dad. There was a long breath on the other end, the kind that carried guilt, hesitation, and something else I couldn't place. Honey, he finally said, voice low, your stepmom Elaine, she wants to talk to you. Just hearing her name pulled a cold ripple through my spine. Elaine. The woman who had burned the one thing I swore I would protect forever. A memory flashed, smoke, fabric, my baby's heirloom dress shriveling into ash. I steadied myself. Why now? Dad exhaled shakily. Because she wants to apologize. And just like that, the past pushed its way back in. I was 21 when everything finally cracked open. Old enough to vote, old enough to work double shifts, but somehow still treated like a child in my own home. Back then, I was just Ava, a girl trying to build a life while holding onto the last piece of my mother, the heirloom baby dress. It had been passed down through the women in my family for 4 generations. My grandmother kept it wrapped in lavender tissue paper, tucked inside a cedar box. She told me once, in her soft Carolina drawl, "Honey, this dress carries the strength of every woman who wore it. One day, it'll protect your little girl too." I believed her. I needed to. The day everything fell apart, I came home from my shift at the diner, hands aching, collar smelling faintly of burnt coffee, and found Elaine standing in the living room with that tight smile she wore when she wanted control. "You need to grow up, Ava," she said, arms crossed. "Stop living in the past." I remember setting my keys down slowly. I'm not living in the past. I'm keeping something that belongs to me. Her eyes narrowed. "That rag is holding you back." Rag. The word punched the air out of me. I walked straight to my room, heart pounding. The cedar box was gone. Panic clawed at my throat. "Where is it?" My voice shook. "Elaine, where's the box?" She didn't answer with words. She stepped aside. Through the back window, I saw it, smoke curling upward from the fire pit. My legs buckled. I stumbled out the back door, gravel cutting into my feet, the heat from the flames hitting my face. The dress, my mother's dress, was curling, shrinking, darkening into a twisted shadow of itself. No, please." I reached toward it, but Elaine grabbed my wrist. "It's time you move on," she snapped. I pulled away, falling to my knees near the pit. My chest shook with silent sobs, the kind you can't stop even if you want to. My hands trembled, so hard I dug them into the dirt just to feel something solid. Dad came out seconds later, but it was too late. He looked between the fire and Elaine, guilt pooling in his eyes, then looked away, as if not seeing it made him less responsible. That moment shattered something in me. Something I never got back. That night, I packed everything I owned, 2 duffel bags and a heartbeat full of anger. Before leaving, I paused at the doorway. My voice barely held steady. "You can burn my things," I whispered, "but you will not burn my future." I walked into the night alone, tears drying on my cheeks, but my jaw set in a way it had never been before. That was the first night I chose myself. Starting over should have felt terrifying, but in those first raw days, it felt like oxygen filling lungs that had been empty for years. I crashed on my friend Olivia's couch in Portland. One pillow, one blanket, one stubborn dream that I refused to let burn the way my mother's heirloom dress had. I worked whatever jobs I could find, waitressing, stocking shelves, cleaning offices after midnight. My feet blistered, my hands cracked, and some mornings I woke up so tired I could feel the exhaustion deep in my bones. But even then, I knew I wasn't going back. Not to that house. Not to Elaine's disdain. Not to the version of Ava who stayed quiet. The turning point came the night I helped close the diner. One of the customers, an older woman named Margaret Hayes, elegant scarf tied around her neck, lingered after paying her bill. She watched me wipe down tables, then asked, "Do you always work this hard, or is tonight special?" I laughed a little, embarrassed. "Every night's like this." She tilted her head. "And what is it you want to do?" No one had asked me that in years. I told her about my love for design, about how I used to sketch outfits in the margins of my school notebooks, about how my grandmother said women in our family had maker hands. Margaret listened with surprising interest. Then she handed me a card. "Come see me," she said. "I run a small textile company. I think you're wasting talent here." I didn't believe her at first, but I went, and that meeting changed everything. Margaret became the mentor I didn't know I needed. She showed me how to work a sewing machine that wasn't falling apart, how fabrics behaved, how design came from emotion, not just lines on paper. She gave me a corner desk in her workshop and told me, "Start small, but start." So I did. Nights were brutal. Days were long. I stitched until my fingers numbed, learned until my brain throbbed, cried when self-doubt pressed too heavy on my chest. But then little victories started showing up. My first custom baby dress sold for $40, then $85, then $120. People loved the way I poured emotion into fabric, grief, hope, resilience. Stories sewn into seams. By the time I was 24, Margaret promoted me to lead junior designer. At 25, I opened an online boutique. I kept everything quiet, posting only vague updates on social media. Working hard. New chapter. Good things coming. I never wanted my family to know I was thriving. Success felt like something sacred, something I didn't want in their hands. Then, when I was 26 and pregnant with my daughter, Madison, I received a letter from the insurance company. They had finally processed my claim for household property destruction. Elaine had listed the heirloom dress as an accident. I received a payout, small, barely enough to buy a second-hand crib, but I invested every penny into my business. That tiny investment was the seed that later grew into something extraordinary. By the time Madison turned 2, my boutique had exploded. Viral reviews, celebrity moms sharing my designs, orders pouring in so fast I could barely keep up. And with that growth came something I never expected. A brand new home, sunlit rooms, a safe life for my daughter, a future built from ashes. But I kept all of it hidden. Until the day my past called me back. The day they arrived, the sky over Seattle was a soft gray, calm, cloudy, almost gentle. Fitting, I thought, considering the storm that was about to walk into my life. I had just finished placing a vase of white peonies on the marble island when I saw their car pulling up through the floor-to-ceiling windows. My heart didn't race. Not anymore. It just tightened, like an old scar reacting to the weather. My father stepped out first, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes searching the house as if it might swallow him whole. Then came Elaine, perfect hair, perfect beige coat, perfect expression of someone trying very hard not to look impressed. I inhaled slowly. Madison giggled from the playroom upstairs, the sound steadying me like an anchor. I opened the door. Dad's voice cracked. "Ava, this place is beautiful." Elaine said nothing, but her eyes swept over the entryway with a look I knew too well, the look of someone calculating value. They stepped inside, and I watched the moment realization hit them. This wasn't an apartment. This wasn't a rental. This was a home. My home. They walked through the foyer, taking in the black and gold artwork on the walls, the sculptural chandelier, the soft Persian rug under their feet. The silence stretched like something delicate and breakable. We ended up in the living room, sunlight spilling across the plush cream sofa. I let them look. Really look. Elaine finally spoke. So, this is where you've been living? I smiled, calm, collected.
Yes.
Bought it last year. Dad's brows pulled together. Bought. I crossed my arms loosely.
Yes. Bought.
Outright. The silence was instant, heavy. Elaine blinked, actually looked stunned for the first time in her life. How could you afford? My company did well. I kept my voice even. Very well. Dad swallowed. Company. I walked to the glass cabinet beside the fireplace and opened it. Inside were framed magazine covers, baby loom designs, mothers and makers, modern artisan, all featuring my work. I handed one to Dad. On the cover was me, holding one of my signature heirloom-style dresses, the headline bold. Ava Thompson, the woman bringing legacy back to baby fashion. His lips parted. This is... It's mine, I said softly. All of it. Elaine's gaze flicked to the displays, then to the house, then to me. So you're successful. The words sounded painful on her tongue. I am. She swallowed hard, mascaraed lashes fluttering. Why didn't you tell us? I held her stare with a calm I had earned with every sleepless night, every cruel word she ever threw at me. Because, I said gently, you never asked. You assumed I would fail. I just let you keep your assumption. Dad sank onto the edge of the sofa, head in his hands. Ava,
I'm so sorry.
I should have protected you from... Madison toddled into the room then, clutching her stuffed bunny, curls bouncing. Dad looked up, eyes softening at the sight of his granddaughter he rarely saw. Elaine stared too, but there was something conflicted in her expression. Regret? Jealousy? Fear? I picked Madison up, kissing her cheek before settling her onto my hip. This is the life I built, I said quietly. For her. For me. Elaine cleared her throat. Ava, I didn't come here to fight. Her voice trembled slightly. I came to apologize. I raised a brow. For the dress? Her jaw tightened. Not defensively, painfully. Yes. Dad looked at her, surprised. She continued, voice cracking. I was wrong that day. Jealous, angry, insecure. Pick any word. I wanted control. And I hurt you. I've lived with that guilt for years. I let the confession hang in the air, watching her eyes glisten. That dress, I whispered, was the last piece of my mother. Elaine nodded, tears slipping free. I know. I can't undo it. But I want to make things right. I exhaled slowly, feeling years of tension press forward, demanding resolution. So, I said, shifting Madison to my other hip, you want forgiveness. I do. I walked to the window, looking at the garden outside, the quiet street, the life I forged from ashes. When I turned back to them, the power had already shifted. Completely. What you want, I said, voice steady, comes with conditions. Elaine's breath hitched, and for a moment, the only sound in the room was Madison humming softly against my shoulder. My father straightened on the sofa, worry creasing his forehead as if he already feared what I might say. I walked back toward them slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle. Not for drama, just for truth. For once, I wasn't the girl trembling in the doorway. I wasn't the one begging to be heard. I was the woman in control. First, I said, lowering Madison into her little reading nook, I need honesty. Real honesty. No rewriting the past, no minimizing what happened. Elaine swallowed. Okay. You burned the dress on purpose. It wasn't a question. Her eyes flickered. She hesitated. Then she nodded, small and shameful. Yes. Dad's face crumpled, his voice barely a whisper. Elaine. She closed her eyes. I told myself it was to help her move on, but I knew exactly what I was doing. The admission felt like a door unlocking, one I had waited years to open. Good, I said softly, because healing doesn't start with lies. Elaine wiped her cheek. What else? I took a breath, grounding myself. Second condition. Family therapy. Together. If you want a place in my life, or Madison's, you have to deal with your anger, your need for control, whatever made you treat me the way you did. Dad nodded immediately. We can do that. Elaine hesitated. Therapy meant accountability, vulnerability,
Change.
but then she whispered, I'll go. I'll do it. I continued. Third, boundaries. No showing up unannounced, no criticizing my choices, no speaking to me or my daughter the way you used to. You want to be here? You respect this home, this life, and the person I've become. Elaine nodded quietly. I understand. But I wasn't done. I turned to my father. And you need to stop pretending you didn't see what was happening. I needed you back then. I needed you to choose me. His eyes filled instantly. I know, sweetheart. And I regret it every single day. I softened. Just a touch. I don't need you to fix the past. I just need you to show up now. Fully. Not halfway. He stood and took a shaky step toward me, stopping just short. I will. Whatever it takes. For a moment, the room felt still, raw, exposed, but honest. Then I faced Elaine again. And my final condition, her breath caught. You make amends in action, not just words. You don't get to erase the past, but you can build something better. With consistency, with sincerity, with time. A tear slid down her cheek. I can do that. I studied her, really studied her. The woman who had once held so much power over me now standing small in my living room, remorse softening every sharp edge she had ever shown me. Good, I murmured, because I'm not offering forgiveness as a gift. I'm offering you the chance to earn a place in a life you tried to break. Elaine's shoulders shook, but she nodded. And in that moment, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not revenge, but release. The power wasn't in making them feel small. It was in finally standing as the woman I had fought so hard to become. The weeks that followed felt strangely gentle, like the slow settling of dust after a long, violent storm. For the first time in years, conversations with my father weren't packed with guilt or hesitation. He called regularly, short, steady check-ins that felt like something he had owed me all my life. And Elaine, she surprised me. She showed up to therapy. She listened more than she spoke. She cried when the counselor asked her to name the version of herself she had been back then. I was afraid of losing control, she admitted one session, voice shaking. Ava was everything I wasn't, kind, talented, connected to her mother's memory. And instead of admiring her, I tried to break her. Hearing those words didn't erase anything, but it cracked something open, something that allowed breath to move where once there had only been tension. Slowly, over time, the edges softened. One afternoon, after a session, she handed me a small white box. Not wrapped. No theatrics. Just simple. I made this, she said quietly. For Madison. Inside was a tiny baby dress, hand-sewn, ivory cotton, soft lace trim. Not an imitation of the heirloom. Not a replacement. Something new. Something honest. I touched the fabric with trembling fingers, and for the first time in a long time, my chest didn't ache with loss. It filled with gratitude. Thank you, I whispered. Her eyes glistened. I'm trying. I know. Life didn't magically become perfect. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were tender, some were heavy. But slowly, my home became a place where laughter echoed without shadows trailing behind it. Madison grew. My business flourished. And my family, broken, bruised, but trying, began to stitch itself back together. One evening, after tucking Madison into bed, I opened the glass cabinet where I kept pieces of my story. Achievements. Photos. And in the middle, centered under a soft spotlight, sat the only thing I had salvaged from the original heirloom dress. A single, charred button. Blackened, fragile, but still intact. I held it in my palm, feeling its weight, its history, its perseverance. 4 generations of women had worn that dress. A 5th would grow up without it. But she would grow up with something stronger. A mother who rebuilt her life from ashes and taught her that nothing, not even loss, could dim her worth. I placed the button back inside the cabinet, closed the glass door, and looked at my reflection, steady, whole, unbroken. Some stories begin with fire. Mine began again after it. And as the house settled quietly around me, I whispered the truth I had earned through every hardship, every step, every flame. What they tried to destroy became the reason I rose. Top of form, bottom of form,